Have you ever noticed how some people don't speak to communicate? They speak to control. They don't ask questions. They make statements. They don't discuss. They dominate. They interrupt. They lean forward. They raise their voice. They use tone, speed, and pressure like weapons. And maybe you've felt it. That subtle tightening in your chest, that shift in the room, that instinct to either fight or retreat. And here's the dangerous part. Most men react. They either explode to defend themselves, or they shrink to avoid conflict. And both reactions make them lose. Because when you explode, you become emotional, you become predictable. And when you shrink, you lose presence, you disappear. But imagine something else. Imagine standing there, steady, silent, unmoved, and then calmly saying one deliberate sentence. Not 10, not 5, not chaotic, just one. And suddenly, the room feels different. Their tone shifts, their energy drops, their words slow. Not because you attacked them, but because they realized something. They cannot move you. They cannot rush you. They cannot control you. Today, I'm giving you 6 Stoic responses so precise, so controlled, that when used correctly, they will silence anyone. Not through fear, not through humiliation, but through presence. These responses are not just for strangers. They're for coworkers, for bosses, for family, for your wife, for people closest to you. Because true strength is not how you dominate others. It's how you govern yourself. And stay with me, because one of these responses requires no emotion, no volume, no aggression. Yet it completely dismantles even skilled manipulators, not by overpowering them, but by making their tactics useless. When you master these 6 responses, you won't just notice silence. You'll notice people speaking more carefully around you. And that's not fear. That's respect. Every man has felt this. You're explaining something important, something logical, something necessary, and the other person just doesn't listen. They interrupt. They talk over you. They twist your words. They change topics. They get louder. And suddenly it feels like they're winning. Not because they're right, but because they're more aggressive. And society subtly teaches us that dominance equals power, that loudness equals authority, that pressure equals respect. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire that spanned continents, not through emotional reactions, but through discipline. Real power is not how forceful you are. Real power is how hard you are to shake, because when nothing moves you, you move everything. And what I'm about to give you are not clever phrases. They are mental positioning tools. They are verbal armor. They protect your composure. They enforce your boundaries. They project authority without arrogance. Let's begin. Not in a neat order, because mastery isn't neat. It's earned. Response 1. I'm comfortable with silence. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it, explain too much, overtalk, overshare. Why? Because silence exposes insecurity, and manipulators understand this. They create pressure and then pause, waiting for you to fill the gap. Most men panic. They start talking, defending, over-explaining. But when you calmly say, I'm comfortable with silence, and then you actually go quiet, something unsettling happens. The pressure collapses. because now they're the ones exposed. Silence makes manipulators nervous because they feed on reaction. They need emotional energy, and you just cut off their power supply. Epictetus said, "If you want to be invincible, make no treaty with what is not yours." Silence is yours. Your presence is yours. Your reaction is yours. And when you refuse to give them access to your emotional state, they lose their leverage. The room shifts. Even people watching start noticing something. They see who holds the power, not the one speaking, but the one who doesn't need to. That's control. Response 2. I won't respond to disrespect. There are people who communicate through negativity. They use sarcasm, belittlement, passive aggression, subtle disrespect. And most men either absorb it or explode against it. But both reactions reward the behavior, because reacting emotionally still gives them power. Instead, you say, I won't respond to disrespect. Not angrily, not offended, not defensive, just as a statement of fact. This phrase does something profound. It moves the issue away from emotion and into standards. You're no longer reacting to what they say, you're defining how they're allowed to speak. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best way to avenge yourself is not to become like them." You are not attacking them, you're giving them a choice. Speak with respect or lose access. And people respect boundaries when they are enforced calmly. This response trains people how to treat you, because if you accept disrespect once, they will give it again. But the man who says, I won't respond to disrespect, and means it, becomes difficult to mistreat. Response 3. You may be right. This one almost sounds weak. To most men it feels like surrender, but it's the opposite. Conflict feeds on resistance, on ego, on the need to prove superiority. Arguments are rarely about truth, they're about control. But when you respond, you may be right, you remove their fuel, because now there's nothing to push against. This phrase does not mean you agree, it means you don't need to fight, and that's power. Seneca said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." Most arguments are unnecessary suffering. You don't need to win every exchange. You don't need to dominate every opinion, because dominance over yourself is the real victory. And when someone realizes they can't bait you, they stop trying, because their tactic no longer works. Response 4. I don't engage in emotional debates. This one separates boys from disciplined men, because emotional debates are traps. Some people don't discuss ideas, they provoke emotions, they push buttons, they escalate tension. Their goal is not understanding, it's destabilization. So when you calmly say, I don't engage in emotional debates, you expose the game without playing it. You step outside the chaos instead of inside it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when you continuously engage in emotional chaos, your mind becomes chaotic too. This response protects your mental territory. It makes it clear you don't get access to my emotions just because you're emotional. And when someone realizes they can't drag you into their noise, they either change tone or lose relevance. Response 5. Explain what you mean. This is one of the most surgical tools you can use, because manipulators feed on vagueness. They say things like, you always do this. Everyone knows how you are. That's just like you, without ever being specific. But when you calmly respond, explain what you mean, You force clarity. Now they must clarify, backtrack, or expose themselves. Most people making vague accusations can't handle specificity. They weren't prepared to be challenged calmly. This response removes emotional intensity and replaces it with logic. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." By forcing clarity, you force truth, and truth destroys manipulation. Response 6. That's not aligned with my values. This one operates on an identity level. You're not debating thoughts. You're asserting principles. When someone pressures you to compromise, to agree, to behave against your standard, you simply respond, "That's not aligned with my values." And then, you don't elaborate, because values don't require debate. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This phrase shows you know who you are, and men who know who they are cannot be chemically or emotionally altered by external pressure. You're not asking permission, you're stating identity, and identity ends arguments. Now you have 6 Stoic responses, 6 tools of composure, 6 shields against chaos. Let's go over them again. I'm comfortable with silence. I won't respond to disrespect. You may be right. I don't engage in emotional debates. Explain what you mean. That's not aligned with my values. These are not lines to dominate people. They're lines to discipline yourself, because the strongest man is not the loudest. He's the most controlled. Most men lose respect with their mouth. They talk too fast. They react too emotionally. They justify too much. They bleed authority through over-explanation. But disciplined men, they speak only when necessary. They stay silent when silence is stronger. They respond only when response adds value. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And this is how. Not through shouting, not through dominance, but through control, structure, presence. When you start using these responses, real changes happen. People will hesitate before approaching you aggressively. They'll measure their words more carefully. They'll adjust their tone, because they recognize something. You are not reactive. You are not emotional. You are not easy. And men who are not easy are respected, not because they are feared, but because they are stable. And stability in a chaotic world is power. This is Stoicism, not as theory, but as behavior. This is the for men philosophy, not motivation, not noise. Structure, discipline, composure. Because when your words are controlled, your life becomes controlled. If this message resonated with you, subscribe, because this channel is not about hype. It's about helping men build structure in a world designed to break them. And leave a comment below. Which of these 6 responses are you going to use first? Because the moment you use one is the moment you begin taking back control of your presence and eventually of your life.